You're likely familiar with the ongoing saga of Maryland father Kilmar Abrego Garcia, gone too soon to El Salvador, of course. Well, there's a similar case developing in Washington state. No, he may not be Washington father, at least I don't see any mention of children in the reporting, but he is Spokane man, and he's at least a dog dad, according to the characterization and photograph selection in the local Spokesman Review newspaper. Martin Diaz is the latest illegal immigrant to be detained by Border Patrol agents on supposedly cruel and brutal terms, until you look at the details for 5 minutes and see why he was selected for apprehension and deportation. But of course, you got to scroll through the sob story first to find that information. Martin Diaz is a 35-year-old Mexican national. He was brought to the U.S. by his mother illegally when he was 2 years old, and he's been living here ever since. Diaz was arrested at his home, which, as we'll get to, I think may be a term that deserves the same asterisk as Maryland father, but Diaz was arrested by Border Patrol agents at his home on April 29th. And his wife, Kendall Diaz, which is another potential asterisk term, wife, his wife rallied activists to his cause.
This is happening all throughout our community and all throughout our country. There's been over 158,000 people that have been detained by the Trump administration in the first 100 days.
This is my husband's home. He's been here since he was a year and a half. People want to send him back to a country he's never been to.
Okay, well, we know that illegal immigrants with criminal records beyond just their unlawful presence are the primary targets for arrest and deportation right now. So what's on Martin's resume? Oh, felony domestic violence conviction in 2017 for beating up his other wife's dad after she asked him to leave and he wouldn't, so she called her dad and he beat her dad up. Also, rape in 2007, or as the Olympic apologists at the Spokesman Review describe it, the couple had sex without her consent. Right, that is the definition of rape, but come on, it's not that big of a deal. He pleaded down to third-degree assault, which is also a felony, and only got a couple months in jail. Okay, well, even if it was just a little sex that was just a little short on consent, that is a big deal, not just for justice and basic morality. That's a big deal for his immigration status. Whatever lenience may have been afforded to him as a childhood arrival is now gone. Felony convictions erase eligibility for deferred deportation. And for that rape conviction, Diaz received an order of removal. He's been fighting it and evading it for the better part of 2 decades now, but it sounds like it's finally removing time. Or maybe it's finally prison time, because there's also the new complication that he's now being prosecuted for assault on a federal agent during that arrest. Border Patrol says he elbowed an agent in the face during the arrest, causing injury to that agent's eye and prolonged blurred vision. If convicted, Diaz faces up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. The Spokesman Review reports that Diaz's mother was crying during his first court hearing on this assault charge, saying, "It's our worst nightmare. It's been a nightmare ever since that first thing." That first thing that she's talking about is the sex without consent incident, an act he committed of his own volition. So who's the actual nightmare here? Diaz's wife, Kendall, says it's so unfair that U.S. citizens get to murder and rape, I think she means have sex without consent, and terrorize the community, but they get to stay. So why can't Martin? Well, one, that grants the premise that your husband is a violent guy, but two, U.S. citizen criminals get to stay in prison where Martin is right now, so that's identical treatment, actually. Anyway, it's yet another case of apologizing for and explaining away the actions of a violent person with no legal right to be here who just can't stop committing more acts of violence while he is. And that is still a story, even if it is comically common currently. But this case gets strange when you take a closer look at the home and the wife and the life that is supposedly happening together there, but quite evidently is not. Credit to my friend NeoUnrealist for digging up some of these details and sending them to me. I'm linking his YouTube, Rumble, and X accounts in the description. If you watch the raw home security video of the arrest, not the edited and dramatized one, there's another guy at the house wearing a gray hoodie. He voices opposition to the arrest.
What are you guys doing? Get back. Get Get back. You have no right to get back. Get back right now. No, you get the fuck back. Get back.
Who is he? Well, according to Kendall Diaz's description to the Spokesman Review, that is her roommate, a guy named Douglas Young. What's his story? Not really described beyond just his name, but during the arrest, Douglas Young says this is his house.
Get out of my house! Get out of my house! This is my house! You have no right to get back.
Now, I'm not saying that's in conflict with the description roommate. I gather he doesn't mean that in the most direct sense, as in, I own this house. He means that as a renter might. I occupy this house. The ownership isn't the question. It's just the fact that there's another man living there, and another man who, just a few months prior, seemed not to know who the husband and owner of the house even is, because roommate Douglas Young was also home when federal agents made an arrest attempt at the house on February 1st. There is also video of that encounter posted to the TikTok account of Martine's wife, Kendall. In that video, federal agents are questioning Young because they apparently thought he might be Martine Diaz or that he might know something about him. And bizarrely, during that questioning, house roommate Douglas Young asks Kendall Diaz, Martine's wife, if she's married. And she replies, it's none of his business.
Are you married?
It's none of your business.
So roommate Douglas Young, who says, this is my house because he lives there and presumably has been living there for some time since he was there on both February 1st and April 29th, does not know if his roommate and landlord Kendall is married, and she says that is not information for him to have. That raises the question, does he even know who his supposed roommate Martine Diaz even is? And if he doesn't, does Martine Diaz even live there? Property ownership records confirm the house is owned by Martine and Kendall and has been since August 2021, but where is Martine? And why are federal agents camping outside this house for months trying to find him if he supposedly lives there with his wife? Reporting says Martine and Kendall started a business called Upper Left Renovations, converting homes to make them accessible to elderly residents. So maybe he travels far and wide helping all the disabled old people in the region or something? How does he even work legally with a removal order? That's its own separate question. But yeah, maybe he's just off in all corners of the country working hard, just being a super good guy, as his brother describes him. Even if he occasionally gets distracted into some assault and a little bit of sex lacking consent. But if he actually was working at job sites, you would think the feds could track those down on a timeline quicker than the many months it took to find him while sitting outside of his supposed house. And Martine and Kendall have been married since 2018, but they have no children. Not that all marriages must or all marriages even can, but it is another factor that raises the question, how together actually are this husband and wife, or what is the actual purpose of this marriage? Well, the reporting just outright says it. His wife has been working to obtain legal immigration status for Martine through his marriage to a U.S. citizen. And that's not just the Spokesman Review's characterization. Reporting from Portland's NBC affiliate adds additional detail. His wife recently had an I-130 petition approved. An I-130 petition is filed by a legal citizen to get an eligible relative permanent residence. Hey, I'm married to that guy, so he should get a green card. That's the idea. But given the questions that naturally follow from that video, is she? Of course, you can't really police other people's marriages like that or say that marriage doesn't count because they live this way or they don't live that way. But it certainly smells a lot like an Ilhan Omar-style convenience, perhaps much more so than a true love story. Regardless, whatever scheming may have happened is now irrelevant because it required a violent man to do the one thing he can't. Stop being violent. Diaz will stay in federal custody until his trial. The Spokesman Review reporting says his effort to get legal status is now stopped because of this charge and trial. Kendall says there is no video evidence of the assault to support the charge, and I will take her point that it's hard to tell in the available video when the elbow to the face happened, if it's even captured in this video at all. But The available video angles also don't capture a lot of the action. It's only partly inside or totally outside of the frame. Regardless, it is clear that Diaz wasn't surrendering either. He was resisting, he was fighting, exactly as alleged in the charging document, with enough evidence for a grand jury to bring the indictment. And he'll probably be convicted for it, either through a guilty plea or a trial. We'll see if he's given the same lenience of just a few months in prison again, or something more serious given his history of violence. Or maybe a permanent vacation in Cancun this time. I think they need housing renovations for all the elderly retiring down there too, and reportedly he has friends with an available Mexican apartment he can use while he's expanding his business. But if he is deported, will his loving wife go with him? That is the big question. Is he really the man that she can't live without? Even though that's not a hypothetical, since she has been living without him so long that her roommate has no idea who that guy even is. I'd say the best defense is that roommate guy is just some couch surfer who smokes a lot of weed and was so high that he just didn't remember that he actually does see Martine every single day. But there's no way, since the feds just let him go. And even for that courtesy, Kendall couldn't be thankful.
All right, you're free to go, bro. Have a good night. Your car's fine, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Piece of shit.
But hey, just like her husband's brief and rare episodes of violence, I'm sure that was just a bad moment for her, too. I bet she is so much more kind to all the other elderly people whose homes she renovates all the time. You know, when her husband is actually around to do those jobs and he's not out on his successful magician tour doing his famous disappearing act. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on X. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chatting my live streams as live on Wednesday and Sunday nights. Looking forward to it. Come on. Hey, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, that means you probably found some value in the video. If you found some value in the video, please consider supporting my material. You can do that one time or recurring for as little as $1 a month. It not only helps me sustain, but it helps me pay the people who make my videos possible. Linked in the description for you, mattchristiansenmedia.com/support. Thanks for listening.